Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Credit You Deserve podcast. I'm your host, David Murphy, President, Marshfield Medical Center Credit Union. And today is a very special episode that we're recording. So 2025 marks the 60th anniversary for the credit union. And so we are joined by the rest of our executive team today, which is Jerry Litwatis, our Senior VP of Lending, and Carol Coolbert, our Operations Manager, just to discuss their experience working at the credit union for the past 30 plus years, and to get a little bit of insight of what the credit union was like when they joined, and to learn how the industry, the credit union itself, the community has changed over those last 30 years. So welcome, Jerry and Carol, to the podcast.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
So Carol, we're going to start with you. Why don't you just give a little bit of an introduction to yourself, who you are, your role at the credit union, how long you've been here, and we'll start there.
Okay, my role at the credit union, I'm an operations manager. I've been here 30 years in February. And my role, I work basically with the teller line new accounts and David.
So congratulations on the 30 years. Obviously, in this day and age, hitting a 30-year milestone is something noteworthy for sure, because people, they don't have the tenure like they used to back in the day, for sure. So it's a great accomplishment to have 30 years under your belt at one organization. So when you joined back in 1995, what was the credit union like?
It was quite interesting. When I started my first day, I remember walking in because I came from a bank, and it was a bigger bank, and back then credit unions were not well known, and it was a big step for me to take because the bank I worked at, it expanded, so you could not have the personal touch with your members there. You had to call either Wausau or Green Bay to get answers, and I did not care for that. And the first day I walked into the credit union, basically it was like a little trailer house. It's very small, and where I worked at, it was a huge place. You had a basement, there were 60 employees there, so I was a little leery at first, but I was very impressed with the members and how they were loyal and the personal touch that was given to the members. And from that point on, I never looked back.
Yeah, for those who are unfamiliar with the history of the credit union, so while the credit union started within St. Joseph's Hospital in the facility there, after 20 years of existence, we actually moved off-site for the first time, and so there's a small, it used to be an old lab that was then reconfigured and set up for the credit union that's located on St. Joseph's Avenue over by the old patio restaurant, for those familiar with the Marshfield area. And we operated out of there for 12 years. 12 years it would have been. So it was an interesting setup from what you guys have told me. I'm sure we'll dive into that a little bit later. Jerry, I'm going to switch over to you. Why don't you give us a little bit of background as to when you started the credit union and your past 30 plus years here.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Jerry Litwatis. I'm the Senior Vice President of Lending here at the credit union. Some of my roles is lending, obviously, consumer loans, mortgages, overseeing the lending department, collections, things of that nature. Also, very newly minted with trying to help David or to kind of take over the information systems technology area at the credit union. Learning a lot on that, fairly overwhelming, but it's always good to learn something new. I remember my first day. You can always go back and remember your first day where I came in the credit union. I can actually take that back actually a month before that when I went in for the interview to get the job. And it was an open teller/loan officer position. And I remember walking in the door and thinking, oh my gosh, this is really small. This is kind of a tiny little place. Went through the interview process, thought, yeah, this is probably not going to be a good fit. Got the call, decided to come here. And my first day, we had a small little office in our small little building that was just off the teller line. And we had a copy machine in there, an old typewriter, and I spent the first week and a half stuffing statements because that was a priority. That's what you did, is, we had to get those statements out to our members. So I thought to myself, okay, well, here we go. And the journey was on.
So you started on the teller line. You've told both Carol and myself over the years that it was a good thing you didn't stay on the teller line because of your your history or your experience or lack thereof, maybe, with being a teller. But when you made the transition from the teller line to lending, what was it like back in the early '90s to do that?
Yes, I will definitely say you are correct. Being a teller was not in my wheelhouse, but I did need to learn the credit union and learn the operations and get to know the members. So that was a 3 or 4 month process that I really look back on and think, wow, that was something that really needed to be done. Really helped me learn about the credit union, learn about the members. But as stated, that was not in my wheelhouse. So I did get into moving into lending, and yeah, it was strange to think of it back then versus now. A lot of manual stuff was going on at that time, so there wasn't computers. We had no PCs at the credit union at that time. Our president, Carol Adler, at the time, she had one PC, and it was in her office that she used for creating reports and stuff like that. Everything was done manually. We actually had to get a credit report, you actually had to dial up there was a phone sitting next to a modem. And there was it looked like a little typewriter, but it was quite small. You had to type in all the information, name, address, social security number, date of birth, and you had to dial a phone number. Once it beeped like a fax, you'd hear that fax sound. You'd have to clip the phone on the modem, and then you'd hit enter, and then it would connect, and you'd pull a credit report. And the credit report came on that old, for those of you that are old enough to remember, that old facsimile paper that used to curl and all the other stuff. So that's how we used to get credit reports. And that was actually in an old broom closet down in the basement of the building. So yeah, compared to now where you basically, everything's integrated, you go online, you go to your database, and boom, there's a spot for credit. You click a button, and there you go.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Well, and I need to give a shout out to your late father who encouraged you to take the job, even when
Yes.
him and hawed over the offer that was given to you, because what did he tell you at that point?
Well, yes, and that's true. My late father was a big influence on this because after the interview, I was a fairly, I guess, arrogant, freshly minted college graduate, and when I was offered the position, the income wasn't quite what I thought it should have been. I didn't feel like I interviewed very well because I was fairly arrogant at the time. But I did get the phone call, and I thought, no, this is not for me. I can't do this. And my father said, hey, you know what? Take the job, get experience, and if you're not happy, you can always be looking, because I'm originally from Park Falls, Wisconsin, and it's a very small town. And for me at that time, Marshfield was a big town. And he said you could get into Marshfield, and you could look if this didn't work out. So yeah, and that was 33 years ago today.
Yeah, interesting, right?
Yeah.
So, Carol, you've been here since you mentioned the old building that was next to the patio. We transitioned to our current facility here on Upham. So as we've grown throughout the 30 years that you've been a part of the credit union, what's one change that stands out as like a milestone change over that last 30 years?
Basically, when I think about the old place, we used to open up new accounts, did everything in the teller window, and there was 3 teller windows.
Yep.
And there was no such thing as direct deposit at that time. So Fridays was crazy because 1 week hospital got paid, 1 week clinic got paid. And it was so small, and our lobby was so small. When we were busy, if there was 8 people in the lobby, it was packed.
Very packed.
And so that was a big change when we moved over here. We had the room, and direct deposit started. And in that old building, it had 2 stairs. When I had to go find loan person, we'd go down one set of stairs. As we're going down, they're going up the other one, and you can hear them walking up the steps. That's how you could hear all the sound in there. But now being in the new building, when we moved in it, what I enjoyed the most is when you can open new accounts separate from the teller line back then. I remember having a member in my window standing, opening up his personal account plus his 4 children, and I had him standing in the window for an hour and a half to 2 hours. Back then, that's how we did it. They had to stand there and we opened their account. Now it's more personal and private. That was great to do that. I mean, you could hear everything. You can hear them going down the steps when they go to lunch. That was quite an interesting.
Well, I remember someone, I don't know if it was one of you two or Carol Adler, would tell the story about how you'd have members having conversation with people in the drive-up across
Yes.
the teller line
I would
routinely.
I would say the drive up just had like a wall and a door. And I would say if it was 4 by 4 feet,
Yeah.
we're lucky.
Lucky. It was a very small
Very
area.
small.
And that is the truth what Dave said. I think Carol Adler probably told that, but I've seen it as well. When I was on the teller line for that brief amount of time, there would be somebody in the lobby at a window, and they'd see somebody they know in drive up, and they'd be having a conversation. That's how small the building was. So yeah, that was something
You could hear everything.
unique to say the least.
So Jerry, during your tenure when you first started, the credit union launched a mortgage lending program, which was a big moment for the credit union and expedited the growth to where we're at today. How did that ultimately expand the offerings that we could give to the credit union's members?
Yeah, it did. I think that's what really made the credit union grow in leaps and bounds is the mortgage program. It had already been established once I got here, but it was pretty much in its infancy stages. I think it had only been going for a couple of years at that point. And the concept behind that is we didn't keep a lot of mortgages at the credit union. It wasn't kept on our books, so to speak. What we used to do is we would assign a lot of our mortgage to the secondary market. We had a mortgage company that we contracted with. We did what is called a correspondent relationship, which is basically we would take the application, do the appraisal, order the appraisal, do the verifications of deposit, run the credit report, verification of employment, get all that information together, package it, and then overnight it through UPS to the underwriting company down at the mortgage company. Having said all that, what it did is we didn't have our assets or our money tied up in these loans for a long period of time. We were able to fund the loan for the dollar amount, and then within a week or so after the loan was funded by us, it was assigned to our mortgage company or sold to our mortgage company. They paid us back plus a little premium that we could make money on. So we were able to take that money and reinvest it to the next loan. It didn't hamper us where we had a large book of business on our loan portfolio. We could use those funds to make more loans. If we were keeping them in-house, we would have been limited to the amount of loans that we could have done.
Sure, and then it makes the credit union more full service at that point because
Correct.
they can stop in and they can get their. I know we started with second mortgages, I believe was the first.
Yes, yep. Second
how
mortgages.
we dipped our toes into mortgage lending, right?
Yep, second mortgage was the way we started, and then I believe, excuse me, we quickly found out that, as I was just saying, we can only keep so many mortgages on our book. So that's when I believe Carol Adler, she found the secondary market avenue and being able to reinvest that money. So you could think of it this way: you could use that $100,000 that we had on our books. You could keep using it over and over and over again because you were getting the money back after you assigned it to the mortgage company.
So Carol, when you look back at the credit union's 60 years that we've been in existence, our credit union, alongside many other credit unions, are built on our relationships with our members. And that's something that you've always emphasized during your tenure here. Can you share a story that sticks out in your mind over the last 30 years of how you made a difference in one member's life or maybe a series of members?
One story that sticks out is there's a member that lost his wife. Basically had no ambition keeping up his checking account and basically didn't care about life. And he came in my office and he was having huge issues in his checking account, which we were thinking of closing out. And basically I sat down with him and he cried in my office and was all upset about everything. I helped him straighten everything out, and I explained how he needs to start saving and having the funds in his account. And from that day on, he came in every month. I helped him straighten out his checkbook, kind of encourage him on what to do and how to save. And after 6 months, I seen such a big change in him, and he was finally on the right path, straightening out, and would come in and talk to Jerry, talk to the tellers. He came out of his shell more, and I felt happy that I could help the gentleman through such a tough time.
Yeah, it's a great story. Really epitomizes what the credit union difference is
Yes.
ultimately.
And there was another story. Individual lost his wife, and of course he had to open up a new account. And basically, he reminded me of my dad, who was always ornery. Just his personality. Loved the guy dearly, but had his opinion. And this gentleman was trying to switch his Social Security over to his new account. And he's on the phone, and he called me one day and said that he was on the phone for half a day, and I could not get through to Social Security. I told him to come to my office tomorrow. I'll set up an appointment at 10 o'clock, and we'll see what we can do. And reminded me of my dad. Well, did you want me to bring in coffee and donuts for break and maybe lunch so you can at least have it in your office? He came in the next day. We called Social Security. Within 10 minutes, I had everything switched over, and the gentleman sat there with his mouth open, nothing to say. And Marilyn, our teller, she also helped him with quite a few situations he had. He just came in. He was just ornery, crabby, but he talked. If you helped him, he was very happy about it. And there were situations she helped him through, and he's ever since then, he's been in a lot better mood and comes in a better mood.
Jerry, same question to you, but on the lending side, obviously credit unions, we're in the business of making loans to people who need it, of course, but is there one specific incident or loan that we've given out over the last 30-some years that you've been here that really sticks out, where we went the extra mile or we took a chance on someone and it really paid off for everyone involved?
Yeah, and as Carol Ray said, I have two stories that really jump out at me. And one was very, very early on. We were still in the old building behind the patio restaurant there. I had only been in lending, I should take that back. I think I only had my approval limit for maybe 6 months, maybe a year. And I got my first loan that just, the credit report wasn't good. There was a bankruptcy. The individual, he lost his job. He used to work for Miller Brewing down in Milwaukee. He moved up here, got a different job as an accountant at the clinic. Everything on paper just looked, no, this is a denial. You should not grant this individual a loan based on the criteria for granting a loan. But I just had something inside me. I guess it's that gut feeling. It's that character of the 4 C's of lending. I just had a feeling that he would do good. Granted him a car loan. I worried about that loan for probably the first 18 months that he had it out. He never missed a payment, always was on time, actually paid off the loan early. So that was one of those where it was just like, I just had this feeling about this gentleman that he was, sincere. I think he ran into a bad patch, and what you saw on paper didn't reflect on what this individual was. And yeah, that worked out. I still remember that. It was one of my first loans that was really challenging, so to speak, where it was like, it wasn't cut and dry, where it's like, oh, they have great credit, they can afford to do this, we're well collateralized, easy loan. This was one of those where, again, on paper, you probably shouldn't have done the loan, but I had this gut feeling about this gentleman, and it worked out. Another one, I guess, just about service in general was, and I didn't think of it this way, was it wasn't that long ago. I know we were in the new building. I had a mortgage closing for a member that was a husband and wife that were purchasing a house. The wife had some health problems, was going through some health problems during the process, and actually the morning of the closing, she ended up in the hospital. And we had everything done, and I was thinking, I contacted the husband. He said she can't get out of the hospital. She's going to be there for at least a week. And I thought, well, we can't let this ride. It's just, all we got to do is go up there. So I contacted the appraiser, or excuse me, the real estate agent. I contacted the title company, and basically we all went up there and met her, and so she could sign her docs, and she was so happy. She was, again, sobbing, crying that we would, all of us would do something like that for you. And I guess I never thought about it. It was just like, hey, she needs a little extra hands. To me, it wasn't that big of a deal, but obviously to them it was. And, that's just the service that we, try to offer every day if we can.
Yeah, I think that that's very common, that the things that we do on a daily basis, we don't think anything of it, but to people who are working with us, it stands out because not a lot of places go those extra miles necessarily, for sure. So Carol, you've been here over 30 years, or just a little over 30 years, or half of our history. We've seen some new developments, new products over the years. For example, debit cards, shared branching. How have these new products or services helped shape the member experience?
Well, this question is kind of funny because I brought that up in my article. And as you know, I'm the oldest one here. I don't know if you want to say I'm an elder, antique, or vintage, whichever word you want to use.
I like antique. I think that works well.
And I have a daughter that's 39, and when she read my article, she thought it was kind of funny I brought up debit cards. Because you have to remember how long I've been in this field. And when I started at the credit union, they used to be called Timecodes, take your money everywhere. And so she thought that was kind of funny because the younger generation, they depend on their plastic. You don't see people writing out checks anymore. When I opened up checking accounts, when I first started, it was nothing to go through 4 or 5 boxes of checks a year. You don't even have people ordering checks anymore, which really throws me off a little. When I open up checking accounts, yeah, why don't you want checks? But everybody depends on the plastic. And seeing that grow like it did, compare like what Jerry said, he mentioned doing statements. And I can guarantee you there was just about a box of check or a couple, at least 50 checks per month you had to put in your statements, count them, make sure they were all there. Nowadays you don't even get your checks back. With my other daughter, share branching was really good because she went to college down in Milwaukee, got a part-time job, and she could make her deposits down there and everything. It's nice for the younger generation in college, plus our snowbirds, they use it quite a bit. And it took a while for the older people to get used to it, but they love it now.
Yeah, and for better or for worse, the industry is definitely leaning towards more change as we explore AI and some of these other technologically advanced solutions that are coming out, for sure. So there's more to come for sure on that side.
Well, and you look at our membership, we do have older members and the younger ones, and the older members, I can guarantee you half of them don't have debit cards yet. Mm-hmm. And you hear my mother, for example, she has to write a check out for everything. She needs that check.
Yep. Yeah, I remember, gosh, you bring up mailing out people's checks. I remember doing that the first couple of years I worked too. So that was more recent, but.
And then we hand them out too. We wouldn't mail them at first. We'd give them to the members because they were always coming in.
Yeah. A lot of times their boxes of checks would come to the credit union, and we'd have to hand it out to them.
No, their statements.
Or their statements, yes, that's true too. Yeah.
I don't even know what the postage was back then either.
Probably not what it is today.
A lot cheaper. A lot cheaper.
So the economy has experienced several highs and lows over the last 30 plus years, Jerry, since you've been working at the credit union. With rates coming down in the 90s, then we had Y2K, we had 9/11, the recession in the mid-2000s, and so on and so forth. What's a key lesson that's kept the credit union strong through all these different environments?
I think just being, I hope this doesn't sound cliche, but just being ourselves. We never, I guess we rolled with the punches. We never tried to develop these, if you've heard the ninja loans before, no assets, no income, to try to make more money. We just stayed true to ourselves. What we did when rates were high, we do when rates are low. We don't look at any other fancy, I guess, so to speak, or maybe not on the up and up lending products. We were just true to ourselves. We didn't get involved with trying to capitalize on a high rate environment and or a low rate environment. We just stayed the course, and we were able to keep the loans pushed out no matter what the economic forecast looked like.
Yeah, and I think that we're in a interesting time right now.
We
so
sure
a
are.
lot of those lessons I think will remain true over the next, hopefully 3 to 6 months, but we'll see.
Yeah, and that is true. We're back to, which I know some of the younger generation doesn't see this, but we're back to a more normalized rate structure as far as interest rates on vehicles and mortgages and things like that. We had, I think, a decade to a decade and a half where we had ultra low rates where they were just, the 2%, you saw the 2.5%, you even saw some 1.99% on vehicles or even mortgages. And that's what the younger generation got used to. So now we're back into the more normal, I would call normal trend, which is 6.5% to 7% on vehicle loans and mortgages. I remember writing my first mortgage for the secondary market, and it was at 8.75%. And again, this wasn't back in the late 80s or anything. This was in 1993. And our members were thrilled to have that rate. So one thing we have to remember is that we don't have to remember, but a lot of people don't know this, but the average mortgage rate over the last, I believe it was 60 or 70 years, is like 7.125%. So we're kind of in that average. I know the younger generation doesn't want to hear about that because they've seen the lower rates, but we're kind of in a more normalized structure. Now, again, there's a lot of things going on in the market right now, so the next 3 to 6 months are going to be interesting to say the least.
Definitely.
Well, when I got my first mortgage, it was at 12%.
Yeah.
That was
Yep.
in 82.
Yep. You're able to afford a lot more when that interest rate's a lot less. It makes a big difference.
Right. So Carol, with 60 years behind us and with the credit union and 30 years under your belt, what's one thing that you're proud of to have contributed to the credit union's legacy as the operations manager?
I guess my commitment to the members and getting to know them, calling them by name, and the staff. One thing about the staff, that's like your second family. You're here 8-9 hours a day. They know more about you than sometimes your own family. And one thing I was always proud about the credit union and being an operations manager is how we would hire part-time summer help. They could either be student or with youth apprenticeship, and they would only be here for a couple years. And seeing them develop here and being able to see them grow as a teller and experiencing members and their accounts and all that, just to see them here for a couple years and get out in the world and see what they become. Quite a few of them stop in yet. I would say 60% probably still keep in touch. I'll see them out on the streets and they'll say, oh, remember when we did this or did that? And quite a few of them are working up on the hill.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
And it's kind of neat to see them grow. Even if they're only here for a couple of years, it's like when you let your kids go, spread your wings.
Yeah, absolutely. Jerry, same thing for you. As we mark our 60th anniversary, what's one achievement from your 30 plus years that you feel has strengthened the credit union's foundation?
I think, I can mimic a little bit of what Carol's saying. It just comes down to, I think, our care and belief in the member. I think we try to give them the best service possible. That is a cliche because I think everybody says that. But just knowing the person's name, asking them how they are when they come in, seeing what's going good with their day. We have lots of members that just pop their head in the door and just to say hi. They don't need anything. They just want to say hi. How was your weekend? How you been doing? That's the legacy that I love about this place. And it's not just me. You see it with every employee that works here. They have different members that come up to them and say, "Hey, how you been? How you doing?" They ask about their weekend. I mean, there's a real conversation that goes on between our members and our employees, and I think that just shows our dedication to our member, and not just being about dollars and cents, and looking at this and saying, okay, what can we sell this individual? What can we do that? It's really just getting to know the member and know their family, and the business kind of takes care of itself. I've had many members come in and just, like I said, just talk about a certain situation, and there's been times where I've told them, hey, I always tell them, go look around, see where you can get the best deal. But that's also because I'm confident that we do have the best deal around. I'm confident that most of them will come back. But I've also told members before, hey, I don't think this is a right fit for you. Even though I know it would help our bottom line, it's not going to help their bottom line. So I think like I said, the legacy is just our members and being true to them.
Makes sense. When you look back over, whether it's the 30 years you guys have been here or the 60 years that the credit union's been in existence, what's one thing that you guys see that's remained the same from the first day that we operated till today?
What do you think, Carol? I think it's our members.
Yep,
and
commitment.
Our commitment to our members, and just the commitment to the members. We have a great field of membership, and having those long-lasting relationships with them is
Correct. And I would like, what's interesting is knowing it's been here for 60 years and you and I only been here 30 plus. It would be more interesting to see pictures, which they don't have. My parents have black and white pictures, so we won't go there. Of the building where they were at the hospital, just the different things that started it out to get to the point of when we started, and from where we started being in this new building.
Yeah, that is something. If you think about, we were in an office, an office space up at the clinic.
Is it the hospital or clinic?
Originally it was the hospital, yeah. And then we moved down they bought that old lab building, as Dave mentioned before, on St. Joseph's Avenue, and we're there for a while, and then we built this building, which was a huge endeavor at the time. And then now, then doing an addition, and most recently doing a remodel. So yeah, it's come a long way for sure.
So to wrap this up, as we celebrate 60 years, what's one hope you have for the credit union's future? Something that will ideally carry us to our 120th anniversary.
I hope we continue to do what we're doing now, which is, making sure the member always comes first. Having that connection with our member, they're not a number. We certainly want to grow. I hope we continue to grow. I hope we continue to keep all of the assets that we have at our disposal. Dave, you mentioned AI, not sitting on our laurels, but using technology, but keeping that member in focus, even though there's new technology out there and ways to make money and things like that, we still need to keep our focus on the member.
I agree with Jerry. Our commitment and loyalty to the members, I'd like to see that stay, because that means a lot.
Absolutely.
And when they come in the door, just to be greeted and being able to have a conversation with either the tellers or Jerry or myself or David, that means a lot.
Sure does.
Like Jerry said, you're just not a number.
I agree. Well, congratulations to you both for hitting 30 years and over 30 years. I know, Jerry, we celebrated your 30th a couple years back here. Obviously, you've had a big role in contributing to the growth that this credit union has experienced over the last 30 years and will continue to experience, because it's not, Carol, you're retiring later this year, but it's not to say that the growth that we experience after you're no longer working at the credit union is not necessarily tied to your contributions that have been made over the last 30 years. So thank you both for what you've done for the credit union. And yeah, ideally, the credit union continues into the future as an independent entity, and it won't be me. I know it won't be either of you two, but hopefully our successors will be celebrating 100 years and 120 years at some point in the future. But we will be, over the course of 2025, having some different celebration events, if you will, just to highlight the credit union's anniversary and to give back to the members and celebrate with our longtime members as well. And so we invite you to be on the lookout for those events. That will culminate with our open house anniversary celebration, which is October 21st. So that is the day that we were formed as a credit union. I would also encourage our listeners to subscribe to the podcast because we do have other events that we highlight throughout the community and with other healthcare related entities and partnerships, and then also just to continue your engagement with the credit union ultimately. So any final words you guys would like to contribute to the podcast?
I think, as you said, I'm looking forward to what we're doing this year to celebrate our 60th year in business. So have a few members come on down, take a look at what we're doing or read about it, and enjoy the festivities.
Yes, and I am retiring, and it's been an honor to work at the credit union. I do not know where the last 30 years went, but I enjoyed every minute of it, and the members.
Absolutely. So thank you for listening to this episode. We hope that we took you maybe down a little path, nostalgia and memory lane, so to speak, but we appreciate you sharing the insights that you've experienced over the last 30 years, and it's nice to get these stories on record. So thanks to our listeners also for sticking through with us on the episode and also with the podcast. Again, we encourage you to listen to more episodes as time allows. So thank you for listening. Here's to 60 more years of giving members the credit they deserve. Thank you.